All right. Let's start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakha Kudash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Let's Examine What Nero Said. And pretty much this is based off of a speech that Trump gave at the UN a couple of days ago. And I ended up listening to almost the whole thing yesterday. But there was a couple of points that stuck out, mainly one point that stuck out, which I want to address. But this morning when I was just recapping, I caught something else in there, which I want to address too. And, Lord's will, this will be an edifying lesson. I also put the link to this video in the description box. So those that are interested can go and, take a listen to it, But let's get into it. Let's examine what Nero said.
That's what it's all about, isn't it? In 4 years of President Biden, we had less than $1 trillion of new investment into the United States. In just 8 months since I took office, we have secured commitments and money already paid for $17 trillion. Think of it, 4 years, less than $1 trillion, 8 months, much more than $17 trillion is being invested in the United States, and it's now pouring in from all parts of the world. We've implemented the largest tax cuts in American history and the largest regulation cuts in American history, making this once and again the best country on earth to do business. And many of the people in this room are investing in America, and it's turned out to be an awfully good investment during this 8-month period.
So pretty much he said that this is the greatest country to do business with. You heard the speech, you could bring it back, pretty much. Matter of fact, let's bring it back a little more so you can.
In American history, making this once and again the best country on earth to do business.
Making this the best country in the world to do business pretty much with.
And many of the people in this room are investing in America, and it's turned out to be an awfully good investment during this 8-month period.
Right, and that's where's he at? In the UN, the United Nations, which is pretty much the meeting of the heads of the globe, pretty much. So they're pretty much doing business with America. And this brings to mind the book of Revelation 18, where the book of Revelation 18 is a future prophecy of a place that is known or called Babylon the Great. And there's no other country, there's no other anything else on the planet that fits the prophecies of Revelation, the 18th chapter and other chapters like America does. And people are starting to wake up to it now and, consider it now, because we've been teaching this for a long time. We were mainly the ones that were teaching it, but you did have some Edomite looking pastors back then that would touch on it and, say certain things about it. But for the most part, we've been the ones that's been pushing, prophecy that America's Babylon the Great, or just one of the main prophecies, dealing with the different scriptures like Isaiah 13, Isaiah 14, Isaiah 34, Jeremiah 50, Jeremiah 51, Revelation 18, 17, so on and so forth. The little horn in the book of Daniel, the 7th chapter, not the 8th chapter, 2 different little horns. The beast whose deadly wound was healed. So we've been the ones touching on that. And now everybody and their mama is starting to become an expert in prophecy of, Babylon the Great and all that, because of the words of the prophets that have gone out throughout the world. So once again, Trump said that pretty much all of these nations, they invested, and their investments are good. Pretty much he's saying pretty much it's through America the world has become rich, or the world has benefited from the business dealings that they have with America. All right. So Revelation 18:1, it says, and after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having the great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Now, this is not talking about moles, because back in the days, High Priest Ariah used to teach that this is talking about that America was taken over by foul spirits, moles, and the transmission and alphabet community. That's not what this is talking about. This goes hand in hand with Isaiah 34, the end of Isaiah 13, and others, where America, once it's destroyed, is going to be inhabited by unclean animals, birds, reptiles, so on and so forth. Right? It says, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of a fornication, dealing with their democracy, and mainly dealing with their finance. The wine is their democracy, and the dealings that these devils have, or these nations have, with concerning the fornication, is financial. All right, because they had to change certain ways and morals and certain mental statuses or religious statuses that they have in their country to do business with America. Because remember, you only get in if they allow you to get in. They hold people back, and they allow people in. Right? It says, for all nations have drunk of the wine. And if you don't play by the rules, they'll drop sanctions on you. They'll drop different things upon these nations to where they'll make it harder for them to operate with America. But the thing is that even if they send their wares here to America, like these, like the tariffs don't directly affect the nations that are in their goods, because they're just going to transfer the cost of those tariffs to the consumer by making the price of the product that much more expensive. They have to pay, at the when they check in at the shipping yard, but those costs will be reflected mainly on the American consumer, you see, not directly on the nation, because they'll have to, the only way it would affect them is if people just stop buying their products, period. But the point is, they're still going to make money because they're going to pass that cost, that extra cost, to the consumer. And it's always like that. The consumer, the populace of America is the one that really catches the brunt, of the bullshit. The bullshit starts here, brother. Inside joke. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. So let's check out a couple of these words. Let's look up the word waxed rich. Is it one word? Is it two? Okay, let's deal with merchants first. You have the word emporos. You get the word emporium. Emporos. It says one on a journey, whether by sea or by land. And basically it's by sea, especially for trade. And that's pretty much what it's for. And then the trade is mostly done by sea. This is why you have the East Coast. You have many ports on the East Coast. You have many ports on the West Coast. And you have ports in the Gulf. And all of these ports do business with different nations. It says a merchant as opposed to a retailer or petty tradesman, right? Because you have a retailer, they buy from a distributor, and the distributor sells to them wholesale, and the retailer buys wholesale. So he'll buy half a dozen or a dozen or 20 dozen, whatever the case is, and he'll sell them piecemeal, one at a time or two at a time, but he'll buy bulk. All right. And that's what these nations are. They're selling their goods, in bulk. And then the retailers in America, the tradesmen in America, they buy it and then they turn around, market it up. I remember back in the days, I believe it was 400%. You think you're getting a deal, but you're really not, and then they would put it out, on the floor, wherever their store was, and sell it to the people, whether it's sneakers or cologne or perfume or whatever, or clothing or whatever the case may be. And this is how they're getting rich, by selling their goods here. So emporos is in, and then poreo is go, to walk, meaning one on a journey. So they leave in their country, putting their goods on a ship and shipping it over here to America, emporos. Now let's look up what the word emporium means. Right here it says wholesale, tradesman, merchant. Let's see what emporium means. Emporium. It says a large retail store selling a wide variety of goods. See, a business establishment that specializes in products or services on a large scale, often used by humorously formal effect, a principal center of commerce, a market. See, the agora. So pretty much an emporium is synonymous with agora, which is a place where trade would take place. Today you have malls, which you had malls back, in the Roman Empire, Hadrian's Mall, but everything was mostly done outside. The agora was outside, that was a marketplace. Today you have indoor, trading, indoor agoras, so you could understand. So let's go back here. So we looked up the word merchants. Let's see what else we got. Then let's look up waxed rich. The word there is pluteo. So you get the word Pluto, which is to be rich, to have abundance of outward possessions. Now you have individuals out there that teach that the Vatican City, which is 2 square miles, is Babylon the Great because of the 7 heads. And they say because, the Vatican was built upon the 7 hills of Rome, so on and so forth, and blah, 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 this, that, and the other. Well, the Vatican is not Babylon the Great, but they are the false prophet that helps Babylon the Great. Because you have 3, potential, workers, so to speak, which, like the scripture say, 3 unclean spirits, like frogs. You have America, the Pentagon, which is the military might. You have the city-state of London, which is, the financial capital, or the financial, aspect of it. And then you have the Vatican, which is the unholy, so-called spiritual aspect of them. And by these 3, they are pretty much gathering the nations together to implement this new world order. All right. It says of outward possessions, metaphorically to be richly supplied. That's going into metaphor. Is affluent in resources so that he can give blessings of salvation to all. So pretty much to be rich, to have abundance. And you see here in America, everything is done in abundance. And this is why the average American is so huge, because there's no restrictions. You got, back then you had just, you get a burger, fries, and a drink, whether it was a, Coke when it was real shit, or a milkshake or whatever. Now everything is supersized. So you're drinking 4 pounds of sugar in one goddamn gigantic cup of soda. Then everything is supersized, big gigantic burgers, big gigantic fries, with all kind of nastiness on it, So let's see, wax rich through the abundance. Let's look up this word abundance. Looks like dunamis, which is power, abundance, strength, power, ability. Inherent power, power residing in a thing by virtue of its nature, or which a person or thing exerts and puts forth. Excellence is the power or influence which belong. Here we go. This is it right here. The power and influence which belong to riches and wealth. And that's what the Lord said, that he's going to destroy these rich men, because these rich men have gained their riches through deceit and fraud, fraud of the money system, and that fraud of the money system has put the world in perpetual debt. This is why you're not supposed to, exact or put usury on anything, because that usury, which is interest, it compounds. You can never pay it off, and this is why they set up a debt system, to where you're always you can never pay a debt with a debt. I don't give a damn if you have 20 credit cards and you're just going to keep chasing the debt. You're never going to pay it off. You get one credit card, you max it out, then you get another credit card to pay that credit card off, and you get another credit card to pay that one off. So you're pretty much just chasing that debt all over the place. You never really pay it off. And this is the system that these international bankers set up here in America through the Federal Reserve, going back to when they first hashed it out back in 1910 on Jekyll Island. You have G. Edward Griffin. He wrote a book called Creature from Jekyll Island. And in 1910 they hammered out the bill that would later become the Federal Reserve system, which is where they have the power right now to print money and lend it to Congress, when Congress already, according to the Constitution, had the right to mint their own coins, make their own money, establish the power of the dollar here. But what they did was they allowed this central bank to take over, the printing aspect of the what the U.S. Mint is supposed to do, and they ended up giving you nothing and charging you exorbitant rates. And that's why you see the national debt as high as it is, because what you received and you're using for your wages, for paying bills and all that, is not really worth anything. There's nothing really backing it up, and that's why they can continue to print. And the more they print, the less the value of that currency becomes, and that's why you see inflation. And one thing Trump said is, inflation is going down. The stock market is doing good. The food prices are lower. The bills. Electricity and all that is lower. And I'm like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? People are catching hell out here, paying their bills and all of that. So what caused that? The effect of that. This is what you see right now with these high rising prices, is the effect of putting a fraudulent fiat currency into the economy of the people, and this is what you get from it. High rising prices because of the value of that particular currency going down. All right. So let's go back. Let me see what else we can glean off of this. And then we looked up abundance, and then we have delicacies. Let's go to delicacies. The word is strenos, right? Which is excessive strength, which longs to break forth, over strength, right? You could use it in that aspect, or it's luxury, and America is known as a luxurious place. Even in the book of Jeremiah, right? Book of Jeremiah, it's either 50 or 51. Let me type it in like this. I believe it's Jeremiah 51 and 41, something like that. Yep. How is Shishak taken And how is the praise of the whole earth surprised? How is Babylon become an astonishment among the nations? Because Shishak is a code name, another code name for Babylon, Babylon the Great, America. And what Shishak means, when you look it up, it means luxury, or like a luxurious lifestyle, which is in abundance, which are delicacies. And this is why people like this place, because it caters to the senses, it caters to the flesh. Shashak, which means thy fine linen. See, so it's luxurious. It's extravagant. It's something that's coveted, and that's why the scriptures speak about this place that had that status being brought down, from that status. Isaiah 14:5, the Lord has broken. 14:4, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, because see, when you see the prophets out there teaching, speaking, prophesying against a particular nation, that means that nation is finished. That's why the third verse says, and it shall come to pass, meaning in the future. This is a prophecy. It says, and it shall come to pass in the day that Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushua, shall give thee rest from thy sorrow. So when we're about to receive salvation, when our captivity is up, when we're about to be finished with going through the punishments that we had to go through, it says, and from thy fear and from the hard bondage wherein thou was made to serve, this would be taking place. This is how we know, this is one of the ways we know that we're at the very end, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how have the oppressors ceased? The golden city ceased. And that's what we out there doing. That's why they're making all of these provisions to set up censorships of all these different avenues of truth, because they understand that this truth is systematically breaking the system down by revealing too much to the people out there, mainly the Israelites. You see, and they're trying to stop that now. This is why they have certain events that take place, to be able to pass legislation to shut down these different avenues, or to restrict what you can say on these different avenues. But the thing is that it's already too late. There's nothing you could do. The cat's out the bag, dude. Inside joke. So it says, how has the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. And when you look this up, like when you look it up in the precepts in the Red Bible, and I'm sure they have it in other Bibles that have precepts, it says the exactress of gold. Now, when somebody is an exactor, they're demanding payment under the punishment or under threat, under coercion. When you look this up, right, golden city ceased, which right there, the word for golden city is Ma'dabah, right? Ma'dabah, which is boisterous, raging behavior, boisterous behavior. Golden city, exactness of gold. Now let's look this up. Exactness of gold meaning. I just keep clicking on that so it doesn't, because sometimes after a while, the page for some reason resets and oops, meaning. Okay. It says the exactness of gold refers to its purity, which is precisely measured by standardized systems to determine its content. The concept is used to define the quality, value, and intended use of gold, particularly in jewelry now, because the word exact, you could be right and exact, which, they're going with that. Like when you say right and exact, that's what they're dealing with. But when you look at the word exact, it could mean the adjective is not approximated in any way precise. So you're exactly, this is exactly 1 pound, but the verb is demand and obtain something, especially a payment from someone. And it's usually not good, not in a pleasant way. It says tribute exacted from the Slavic peoples. And the word Slavic goes back to the word slave. Yugoslavia is yoke of the slave. All right. And the Slavic people, that's where you get the word slave from. All right. And tribute is just that, tribute. It means, something that is owed to this particular nation that conquered you. Tribute meaning an act, statement, or gift that is intended to show gratitude, respect, or admiration. Right here, this is the main one. Payment made periodically by one state or ruler to another, especially as a sign of dependence. And we are exiles. And this is why the scriptures say that let's go to it. Isaiah 51 and 14. Because I want to play a little bit more of this speech, because there's another point in here. And boy, woo, Jake is in for it. When the Lord said they shall be like madmen, sparing none, the Lord don't. You don't know the terrors that awaits these Israelites out here. Isaiah 51:14, except for the elect, the captive exile hasteneth that he may be loosed. So we are the exiles. We are captive. We are slaves in exile. Meaning exile means we were kicked or brought or ripped out of our land. All right. So the captive exile hasteneth that he may be loosed. Yeah. So we're in captivity here and we're hastened to be loosed. It says, and that he should not die in the pit, nor that his bread should fail. And that's why we read in Isaiah 14 that when the time comes for the Lord to get ready to deliver us from this captivity, that we would be taking this proverb against the king of Babylon, that thou shalt, Isaiah 14:4, that thou shalt take this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how had the oppressor ceased, the golden city ceased? The Lord has broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers. And we just happen to be in the 249th year of the American empire, since it's been established as an empire going back to 1776. So July 4th of 2026 will be the 250th year or anniversary of America. And that in empires, according to they're saying now that you can't, that there's no resources backing it up. But when you look at the average lifespan of an empire, it's about 250 years. And America is well into that. They're in the waning years, they're circling the drain. All right. So it says, he who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke. This is something that he did over and over and over and over and over again. And this is why they do it physically with the sword, but they also do it mentally by putting stuff in your face, in these different ads and these different, movies and these different, sitcoms and, comedy things, and commercials and all of that. Just constantly bombarding your mind with these thoughts and to gradually bring you in to, their way of thinking. And most people will go that way. Let's see, the average lifespan for an empire or kingdom is debated, but often cited as around 250 years. Right. Because you got to understand, we're in a great time of information coming out. So since the truth is out, these devils then bought different platforms of information to where the information now is controlled by them, and they redirect you. Because I remember years ago when we first started, going on the internet, you would type in, within the first page, second page, the first link or second link, you will find all of the information you needed. Now you got to go through reams and reams and reams and reams and reams, and page after page after page after page of information just to get the same information that we got, let's say 10 years ago, 15 years ago, almost 20 years ago when YouTube really came, and even a little before that, when the internet was just starting to really take off. So the continual, he who smote the people with wrath is a continual stroke, meaning with the sword and actually mentally. All right. It says, he that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted and none hindereth. Right. So we're seeing the persecution. We're seeing we're seeing this devil falling. Yahweh Shai even said it 2,000 years ago. I seen Satan as lightning fall from heaven. So he already fell in another dimension. This movie is already over. America's already destroyed in another dimension. But right now, what we're doing is the Lord is playing back the tape. He's rolling back the tape from what was already pre-recorded. And we're just going through, for lack of better words, we're just going through the motion today, of what the Lord already showed the prophets. Because how were the prophets able to see it in a vision? Because it already happened. All right. He that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted and none hindereth. The whole earth is at rest, and that's the only time, that's the only solution. These devils got to be put down, because who's at the helm? Amalek. The tiny tops. I like that. Yashawamba came up with that term, tiny tops. I like that. I was cracking up yesterday when I heard that. And they are the most wicked, the most corrupt, the most diabolical, the most ghoulish, the most demonic, the most, just like Apostle Charles said years ago, we got to find new words to describe these devils, man, because these words they're not enough to describe the wickedness, the inherent wickedness of these goddamn demons, these tiny tops. So like it, bro, I had to steal that one. So it says they break forth into singing, right? Because once these devils go down, everything is going to go back to what it's supposed to be. We according to his promise, wait for new heavens and a new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness. So let's continue on with this devil's speech.
In my first term, I built the greatest economy in the history of the world. We had the best economy ever, history of the world. And I'm doing the same thing again, but this time it's actually much bigger and even better. The numbers far surpass my record-setting first term. On our southern border, we have successfully repelled a colossal invasion.
And that's what
this new scam is spreading.
I want to touch on the border. Something that he said that kind of
please watch the next 30.
Caught my attention.
And for the last 4 months, and that's 4 months in a row, the number of illegal aliens admitted and entering our country has been 0. Hard to believe, because if you look back just a year ago, it was millions and millions of people pouring in from all over the world, from prisons, from mental institutions, drug dealers, all over the world they came. They just poured into our country with the ridiculous open border policy of the Biden administration. Our message is very simple. If you come illegally into the United States, you're going to jail, or you're going back to where you came from, or perhaps even further than that. You know what that means?
You say you're coming here illegally, you're going to jail, you're going back to where you came from, or even further than that. You know what that means. So he left it open for interpretation, which pretty much, you know what that means.
Our message is very simple. If you come illegally into the United States, you're going to jail, or you're going back to where you came from, or perhaps even further than that. You know what that means? The ridiculous open border policy of the Biden administration. Our message is very simple. If you come illegally into the United States, you're going to jail, or you're going back to where you came from, or perhaps even further than that. You know what that means? Our message is very simple. If you come illegally into the United States, you're going to jail, or you're going back to where you came from, or perhaps even further than that. You know what that means? Our message is very simple. If you come illegally into the United States, you're going to jail, or you're going back to where you came from, or perhaps even further than that. You know what that means? I want to thank the country of El Salvador.
So you get the idea. So Jake, you're in trouble, Jake. You know, he ain't talking about the Moabites. He ain't talking about the small. He ain't talking about nobody else. He's talking about the so-called Latin tribes. All right. Yep, he's definitely on some gangster shit. And hey, that's good. This is good. Because like Elder Pastor said, we believe him to be that cruel Lord in the book of Isaiah, the 19th chapter. Matter of fact, let's hit that, and then I got a couple of other precepts that I was going through last night that I want to kind of touch on. Let's go to Isaiah 19. I'm just going to go straight to the point. Isaiah 19:4. This Egypt is talking about America. Matter of fact, let's start at verse 1. The burden of Egypt, behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud. What is that swift cloud? This is the chariot. And this goes hand in hand with Revelation 1:7. Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him. And shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. Right, like it says in Luke 21, around 25, men's hearts failing for fear for looking upon those things that are coming upon the earth. And that's looking at the missiles, and also looking at the chariot of Yahweh. You got to imagine, the grandioseness, of the spectacular event that's going to happen when you see this big, gigantic thing up there, which they call UFOs, which is a chariot according to the scriptures, and people are going to bug the fuck out, boy. It says, and shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. And I was, so let's just jump down to the main one, verse 4. And the Egyptian will I give over into the hand of a cruel Lord, and a fierce king shall rule over them, saith the Lord Yahweh B'Shem Shai of hosts. You heard what Trump said. If you come into this country illegally, you're going to go to jail. We're going to send you back to where you came from, or even further than that. You know what that means. So let's see, and let's check out other translations. I will hand Egypt over to a hard, cruel master. A fierce king will rule them, says the Lord of heaven's armies. NIV, I will hand the Egyptians over to the power of a cruel master, and a fierce king will rule over them, declares Yahweh B'Shem Shai, the power almighty. All right, so you get the idea. So let's go to Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 1. The word that came to Jeremiah from Yahweh B'Shem Shai, saying, thus speaketh the Lord Yahweh B'Shem Shai, power of Israel, saying, write thee all the words that I have spoken unto thee in a book. For lo, the days come. So this is the future. This wasn't talking about the Babylonian Empire, because by the time of the Babylonian Empire, the Latin, the so-called Latin, or the Indian tribes, as they're called, were already here in the Americas. They fled. They were taken out around 722 BC from Samaria, from those regions, brought into captivity under the Assyrian Empire, and broke away from the Assyrian Empire and came all the way over to this side of the world in America. All right, the upper room. And so by the time the Lord gave Jeremiah this vision, the northern kingdom was already on this side of the world in Arsareth. So they were not there. So this was not talking about back then. It says, for lo, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will bring again the captivity of my people Israel. Right. So when it says bring again the captivity of my people Israel, meaning deliver us from slavery. And if you don't think that you're in slavery right now, then that proves that you're a good old slave, because we are slaves. We are contractual slaves today. This is why the so-called Emancipation Proclamation happened, because through through Judah being so-called delivered from the slavery of the South, they entered into contract pretty much through the 13th and 14th Amendment, which made pretty much everybody in America, the so-called American citizen, what's the word I'm looking for? Connected, for lack of better words, to the jurisdiction of America. And that's done through contracts. This is why if you want to drive, you got to have a driver's license. You have to have a social security card. You have to have a birth certificate, so on and so forth. This is all paperwork. Pretty much it's nothing more than a modern day slave pass. If you don't have those things, you get pulled over. What happens? They'll detain you, and eventually they'll bring you, they'll lock you up until you can prove who you are. You see? It says that I will bring again the captivity of my people Israel and Judah. So Israel and Judah were separated. The kingdom of Judah was separated from the kingdom of Israel, or Ephraim. The northern kingdom, or the southern kingdom from the northern kingdom. All right? What's this here? Let's go. Matter of fact, do I have it here? Let's see. Nope. Just bear with me 1 second. It says, Jeremiah 15:33. This is also dealing with the same thing. Thus saith Yahweh Bashem Shai of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. And we're in captivity here. It's not a coincidence that all of the tribes are here in the same condition, because this is prophecy. Remember this, we just read in Jeremiah 30 that the days shall come. For lo, the days come. This is Jeremiah 30:3. Saith the Lord, that I will bring again the captivity of my people Israel and Judah, meaning when he's going to deliver us, saith the Lord, and will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it. But before that, we got to go through Jacob's trouble. It says, and these are the words that the Lord Yahweh Bashem Shai spake concerning Israel and concerning Judah. For thus saith the Lord, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. Why? Because there's going to be a great time of affliction. Let's go to Daniel chapter 12. And that Benjaminite elder man, I believe he was a pastor, he cut Nate with this, when Bishop Nathaniel was saying that there was going to be no Jacob's trouble. But then he spun that, like the oil can Harry that he is, and said, if you listen close, moron, I didn't say there wasn't going to be no Jacob's trouble. I just said there was nothing happening back then. No, you didn't. Everybody knows that has a working brain in their head that's not a goddamn zombie. They know what the fuck you said. Daniel 12:1. And at that time, Michael shall stand up. And it's going to be so fierce that the angel Michael and the angels are going to have to be there to protect the elect. Let's go, before we read on, let's go to Isaiah 59. This is my favorite. This is one of my top favorite. Isaiah 59:19. So shall they fear the name of Yahweh Bashem Shai from the west. We're in the western hemisphere. And there's glory from the rising of the sun, because you have Israelites all the way over on the other side of the world too. When the enemy shall come in like a flood, and we see them mounting their assault. You heard what Trump said. If you come in this country illegally, you're going to go to jail, or we're going to send you back where you came from, or even further than that. You know what that means. And he paused. It says, when the enemy shall come in like a flood, the spirit of Yahweh Bashem Shai shall lift up a standard against him. So there's going to be some type of divine intervention to come between the demonic forces of Esau and the elect. The word there for standard is the word nawas, Nawas, to flee, escape. See? So there's going to be a way for the elect to escape. Let's go to, we're going to come right back to this. Let's go to Psalms 124. One of my other ultimate favorite. This whole chapter is dynamic. But we're going to go straight to the point. Verse 6. Blessed be Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, who have not given us as a prey to their teeth. We're in the confines of this prison called America, right? We're in the clutches of these devils, but still in all, the Lord is going to make a way for us to escape. Just like when the angel, pretty much told Peter, get up, get your ass up. And Peter was like all groggy, put his coat on, he started walking. The gates just started opening up. And then he was just walking. He was just like, didn't know what the hell was going on. The first gate opened up. The second gate opened up. And by the time he got out of the prison, the angels let him out. By the time he got out, then he started to realize, oh, shit, I'm out of it. Damn, this is real. This ain't no vision. So it's going to be like that. But it's going to be far more spectacular because we're in a time where Yahweh's name and his son's name, Yahushai, is going to be magnified. The world is going to know. They're going to come to the conclusion and give reverence and praise and honor to the true power of the heavens, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So it says, blessed be the Lord who have not given us as a prey to their teeth. Our soul, meaning our bodies, is escaped as a bird out of the snare of the fowlers, meaning we're going to be in the trap, but the Lord is going to make a way for us to escape that trap. It says, the snare is broken, meaning the trap, and we are escaped. It says, our help is in the name of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, who made heaven and earth. That's why it says, the name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous runneth into it and is safe. That's why those names are so important, man. That's why I can't understand what these motherfuckers play with the name of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai all the time, man. Don't you know that that's our cloak? That's a part of what the shadow. That's a part of of what the Lord the protection that the Lord has given us. That's a part of the stability of our times. That's our strength. Why would you play with something like that? So let's look up this word escaped. The word there is malat. To slip away, escape, deliver, save. So the elect are going to be in the clutches of these devils, but they're going to escape. The Lord's going to make a way for them to escape. Revelation 3:14. And see, those of you that are thinking on a small level, you don't know what the hell is going on. I got to do another video. This is your reinforcement. Scriptures say, "Give diligence to make your calling and election sure." This is you're putting in money into your spiritual savings account. So when that time comes, you can withdraw. If you withdraw, and you put nothing in, eventually you're gonna run out, and ain't gonna be nothing there for you to draw from. Revelation 3:14. I'm sorry, 3:10. Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, the word of my suffering, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which is the time when this micro-CHIP is introduced, the MOTB. When the world is in a state of confusion and in a state of desperation. The Lord said, because you kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. So the elect are going to be in the clutches of these devils, but they're going to escape. They're going to slip out. Let's go back. Just bear with me because, now this thing is acting up. I'm going to go back some more. So this is the word nawas, which is standard, which we read here, to flee, escape. So the Lord's going to cause some type of divine intervention to where the elect are going to escape. See here, to hasten, to be born swiftly. So it's going to be something swift to put to flight, to cause to disappear, hide. So the Lord could do something to where he can use an angel to cloak the elect to where they become invisible, to where those troops can't see them. You don't understand the power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, the things that he can do. You don't understand. You're thinking on a small, minute level in this fucking fucked up world and these raggedy ass bodies. There's going to be some very intense things that the Lord is going to do for his elect. You know, the first fruits, the beloved, the bride. Just like you have a woman that you're really into, that this is your favorite woman, and you do anything to keep her safe. Well, that's what the Lord is going to do for us. So let's go back. So Daniel 12:1, and at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, Jacob's trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book, meaning the elect. So whatever effort you put into this truth is what you're going to get out of it. You know, if you're just doing this to buy time because you're waiting for this letter so you can go to college, or you're waiting for this letter so for a new business venture or whatever the case is, and this is just a pastime, you're going to feel it in that day. But if you sincerely putting your everything into this truth, to the best of your ability, you're building great riches that's going to serve to get you out of this bind that's going to come upon the whole world. And the thing is, we could say anything, but then when it happens, we could fall apart. But the thing is, the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai will put it in us to resist, no matter what. Like Yahushai, he was nervous. He didn't want to go on that goddamn cross. But they came to the point where he said, no, there's no other way. And the spirit of the Lord of Yahweh came upon him at that moment to be strong internally, to just go ahead and just deal with it. And that's what's going to separate the real from the fake. The spirit that the Lord puts on the elect as opposed to the non-elect. All right, so let's go to Jeremiah 30 again, verse 5. For thus saith the Lord, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace, because it's going to be hard out here. It says, ask you now and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins, as a woman in travail? Right, because even the strongest men are going to bow. It's going to be a great time of distress, a great time of desperation. And you have to understand that the mindset of the average American here is comfort, mental comfort, physical comfort. When a blast of hard times come, the average person out there is going to fall apart because they're not mentally prepared for what's coming. And wisdom and knowledge to be the stability of that times and strength of salvation. The fear of the Lord is his treasure. It says all faces shall be turned into paleness, meaning horror. It's going to be sheer horror in the face of Jake out here. Like they say, what's wrong with you, man? Look, you saw a ghost. It's going to be sheer horror during the time of Jacob's trouble. These proud ass bitches that you see walking around with their fucking nose stuck up in the air, you happen to look their way, not intentionally, just happen to look that way, because you were, you just happen to look. You wasn't looking at her, and then she see you looking, she's like, she get even turned up more, and you get mad, like, oh, fuck, fucking bitch. But the Lord's gonna humble that shit. He's gonna put you motherfuckers back where you belong, under the fucking foot. You belong under a goddamn foot, bitch. That's where you fucking belong. That's the only time you'll be in your fucking right mind. When you put back in fucking subjection. And you see the fruits of the goddamn devil, giving you this goddamn liberty. You see the fruits of it. The demonic fruits of these women, given over much liberty. You're going to be put back in your place. You're going to humble you. You're going to be crying. You're going to be shitting on yourself. Your weave is going to be fucked up. Some of you other tribe that don't have weaves, you're going to be fucked up. Makeup running, crying and shit. Oh, please. You're going to have to wait in line. And when that brother had that dream, right, I looked at it from a perspective where, the woman said, you're going to take care of me. He said, I can't afford you. I didn't look at it as if he couldn't afford her, like, financially. I looked at it as these women today said, you can't afford me. If you can't take me to a 5-star restaurant and take me on a cruise and this, that, and the other, you can't afford me. So now we can't afford you. You're right. We can't afford you no more. And that's, pretty much how how I looked at it. A lot of these women are going to be turned down because a lot of these women are fucking super tainted. And it's not going to take 2 weeks to get them in order. A bitch will get in line just like that when fucking hell and calamity comes down. Because when some shit happens out there, the first thing the bitch do is start screaming, ah! Looking to save her fucking skanky ass hide. But then they're this big, strong, extravagant, super strong and strength, I'm the man. Until it's time to be the man. And until it's time to take on responsibility. Now you don't want to be the man. You just want the title. You want the power, but you don't want the responsibility. And I can't wait for the Lord to put you fucking bitches in order, man. Oh, man. That happened yesterday, too. I saw this fucking funky-ass bitch. I mean, some skinny skank, scraggly skank. And I wasn't looking at her. I just happened to, my eyes happened to look, and she happened to be crossing, and our eyes, locked, and she just got turned up like, ugh. I was like, oh, my goodness. And all I could think about is I can't wait for the Lord to humble these fucking hoes. And it's coming. Jacob's trouble is coming. You're going to feel it. You're going to feel it. Swish. Inside joke. So let's see what it says in the NLT. Now let me ask you a question. Do men give birth to babies? Then why do they stand there ashen-faced, hands pressed against their sides like a woman in labor? Yeah, they didn't bring out the part. Okay, here we go. NIV. Ask and see, can a man bear children? Then why do I see every strong man, with his hands on his stomach like a woman in labor? Every face turned deathly pale, right? Meaning, the sheer horror of what's coming. The actual reality of being in this situation, not just watching it on TV, not just watching some video of some situation going on somewhere, some remote part of the world, actually being in that scenario. Troops coming and busting people's head up and taking people out, grabbing people up. I'm talking about that kind of scenario. And it's coming. Oh, it's coming. And it can't come fast enough. I'll tell you that. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble. So Jacob's trouble is coming. You have some clowns out there say that there was no such thing as Jacob's trouble. You had other clowns saying out there that the Jacob's trouble is gay. The word for trouble is tazarah, straits, distress, trouble. And straits here, see how it's spelt, right? For those of you that don't know. You have new members that watch, so you got to double back sometimes. Straits, a narrow passage of water connecting two seas, right? Like the Straits of Gibraltar, the Straits of Hormuz. That's where, as you can see down here, that's where two bodies of land come very close together, and there's only so much water that goes through. And a ship, somebody that's navigating a ship has to be an expert to navigate through that strait, because a strait, you can have jagged rocks on each side, and you could run that ship aground if you don't know how to navigate it, and that would stop up the rest of the ships behind from coming through. So this is akin to straits as far as a position of difficulty. As you read further down, it says, used in reference to a situation characterized by a specified degree of trouble or difficulty, which is what? Jacob's trouble. All right. So going back, let's read that again. So, alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even a time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it, meaning the elect will be saved out of it. For it shall come to pass in that day, saith the matter of fact, before we read on, let's go to Jeremiah chapter 3 and 15. And I will give you pastors according to mine heart, which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding. And that's happening right now, because we're being prepared for the kingdom. The physical kingdom, because we are the kingdom. The knowledge that we have inside of us is the kingdom, but we're being prepared for the physical kingdom. For the first step is deliverance. Then comes the change. Then comes the upgrade. Then comes paradise. It says, and it shall come to pass when you be multiplied and increase in the land, in those days, saith the Lord, that they shall say no more, the ark of the covenant of the Lord, neither shall it come to mind, neither shall they remember it, neither shall they visit it, neither shall that be done anymore. And at that time at that time they shall call Jerusalem the throne of the Lord. Right? We're being prepared for this, and that's what the prophets are doing. They're preparing, Jake for what's coming. Jake is short for Jacob, which is the father of the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. And all nations shall be gathered unto it, to the name of the Lord Yahweh B'Shem El-Shaddai, to Jerusalem. Neither shall they walk any more after the imagination of their evil heart, right? Because they're going to have to follow the law, statutes, and commandments in the kingdom. So now, leading up to that, you will have to have teachers, prophets to teach you. It says, in those days, the house of Judah shall walk with the house of Israel. And we see in the coming together of the both kingdoms, the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. And even in the midst of all of this, these devils are causing all type of confusion and pitting Judah against Issachar, and the southern kingdom against the northern kingdom. But you still have the southern kingdom and northern kingdom that's still coming together in the midst of all this confusion. This is Yahweh Shai leading the elect, his sheep, to where they're supposed to be, as the world is spiraling out of control and falling into a state of chaos. The elect are coming together in their right mind, sound mind. It says, and they shall come together out of the land of the north, which is America. It says, to the land that I have given to for an inheritance unto your fathers. And this is what we're being prepared for the kingdom. So going back to Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 7, it says, alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. For it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord of hosts, that I will break his yoke, meaning Esau's yoke, from off thy neck. And it begins with what? With the truth. In Isaiah 10, it speaks about, oh shit, the brother put it up. Matter of fact, can you put more of those verses up, bro? Isaiah 10:21, the remnant shall return, even the remnant of Jacob, unto the mighty power. Right, and then there's more, because it says that if you could put in, I believe it's a 22nd verse, and then I believe it's a 27th verse, it goes into it. even more. It says, and will burst thy bonds. What are the bonds? Right now, it's the mental change that Esau has on Jake. And also these contracts that bind us to this devil's kingdom, that have us pretty much in slavery under his authority. You know, it says, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him, right? Because that's what the Lord is coming to do. He's coming to deliver us from the clutches of Esau and of these nations, right? Beautiful, the water, bro. Verse 22, Isaiah 10:22. For though thy people be Israel be as a sand of the sea. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Yeah, you could put in the I'm going to read that too, but it's in verse 20 actually. Isaiah 10:20. I'm going to read that too, but I want to read the 20th verse real quick. It says, Isaiah 10:20, and it shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of Israel and such as are escaped of the house of Jacob shall no more stay upon him that smote them. That's Esau. Meaning when you stay upon somebody, meaning you're depending on them. We're not going to depend on these devils anymore, but shall stay or depend upon Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, the Holy One of Israel, in truth. And only the elect are going to get that. When you jump down to the 27th verse, it says, and it shall come to pass in that day that his burden, which is what? These contractual laws, being in subjection to this devil, shall be taken away from off thy shoulder, and his yoke from off thy neck. And the yoke shall be destroyed because of the anointing, because of this truth. So this truth has mentally separated us, made us free from this place. You know, Yahweh said, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free, right? Because of the anointing. What is the anointing? Anointing is oil. As you see here, shaman, which is oil. I remember I tried to give this name to an individual back in the days. Oh, no, I don't want that because it's a shaman, you know, the shaman. No, it's shaman. It's oil. But then you have, you know, priest shaman in the main camp that has his name, which means oil. It's a bad name. Fat, oil, fat, fatness. Oil, olive oil, as staple, medicament or unguent for anointing, fat or of fruitful land, valleys, metaphorically, right? But it's also metaphorically for the truth. Let's see what this one says. All right. So metaphorically, anointing is, you know, the being endowed with the Holy Spirit, you know, to be protected from this. Like the King David said, "Thou anointest my head with oil." Okay. So going back to Jeremiah 30:9, but they shall serve the Lord their power and David their king, whom I will raise up unto them. And the storyline is always the same. The children of Israel being delivered, being in the kingdom with Yahushua, and being in the kingdom with King David. King David is a very integral part, very important part in this ministry, in this truth. That is the Most High's man. His name, David, Dawayad or Dawada, means beloved. See? So he plays a very important part. So this devil, Trump nasty, right?
Our message is very simple. If you come illegally into the United States, you're going to jail, or you're going back to where you came from, or perhaps even further than that. You know what that means?
I mean, this devil stay talking shit. I mean, he is the perfect example of, you know, the horn having a great mouth, speaking great words and blasphemy, something like that. Along those lines, merely paraphrasing. He embodies that. I mean, this is the most shit talkingest Edomite in the world. He talked more shit than Jake. It says, therefore, of Jeremiah 30:10, therefore fear thou not, O my servant Jacob, saith the Lord Yahweh Shem shall neither be dismayed, O Israel, for lo, I will save thee from afar. This is where we at. We in America, afar, the land of the north, and thy seed from the land of their captivity. Singular. And Jacob shall return and shall be in rest, and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. This is what we're waiting for. For I am with thee, saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem Al-Shai, to save thee, though I make a full end of all nations whither I have scattered thee, yet will I not make a full end of thee. But I will correct thee in measure, and will not leave thee altogether unpunished. And this is why we had to go through what we had to go through. Because the Lord said, whom he loveth, he chasteneth and rebuketh often. And you can read on here. This whole chapter is dynamic. We stopped there at the 11th verse, and there's a whole lot more. But you heard what the devil said. If you come into this country illegally, you're going to go to jail. You're going to be sent back to where you came from, or even further than that. You know what that means. So it's going to get hairy out here. Inside joke. So with that, I pray that your brothers and few sisters have been edified. Till the next time I say, shalom.